A small African village, where the red earth met the golden sunrise and the sound of distant drums echoed through the air, lived a young woman named Amina. Her life was simple, yet filled with quiet dreams and deep emotions. She believed in love the way the elders spoke of it, pure, patient, and lasting through all seasons. Amina grew up watching strong women around her, women who built homes, held families together, and stood firm even in the face of hardship. From them, she learned that love was not just words, but actions. It was sacrifice, patience, and unwavering loyalty. And she carried these values in her heart as she stepped into her own journey. When she got married, Amina was full of hope. She imagined a life where love would grow stronger with time, where two people would support each other through every challenge. She was ready to give her all, to build a home filled with warmth, respect, and care. Her days became filled with simple routines, waking up at sunrise, preparing meals, and taking care of her home. But to her, these were not just chores, they were expressions of love. Every small effort she made carried meaning, because she believed she was building something beautiful and lasting. In the quiet rhythm of village life, Amina found purpose. She was not chasing a grand life. She was creating one, step by step, with patience and dedication. She did not know what the future held, but she held on to one belief: that love, when given truly, would always find its way back. And with that faith in her heart, Amina's journey began, a journey that would test her, shape her, and ultimately reveal her true strength. For 12 long years, Amina gave everything she had: her time, her energy, and even the dreams she once held close to her heart. In the quiet rhythm of the African village, her life became a story of sacrifice written in small, everyday moments. Each morning, before the sun fully rose over the red soil, Amina was already awake. She would carry water from a distant well, prepare meals over a small fire, and ensure that her home remained a place of comfort. Her hands worked tirelessly, yet she never complained. To her, this was love, not something spoken loudly, but something shown through actions. There were dreams she once had, dreams of learning more, seeing the world beyond her village, and becoming something greater. But slowly, those dreams faded into the background. She chose her family over herself, believing that her sacrifices were building a stronger future. Even when she felt tired, even when her heart quietly longed for something more, she remained strong. She convinced herself that one day, all her efforts would be understood and appreciated. That one day, her love would be seen for what it truly was. The people around her saw a hardworking woman, but they did not always see the depth of what she had given up. Only Amina knew the true weight of her sacrifices, the silent struggles, the unspoken desires, and the strength it took to keep going. But she never stopped, because in her heart, she believed something deeply. That real love is not about receiving, it is about giving, even when it costs you everything. And so, year after year, Amina continued, building a life with hope, patience, and a heart full of quiet sacrifice. Through every hardship, Amina stood by her husband like a strong tree rooted deep in the African soil. Life in the village was not always easy. There were seasons when the rains did not come, when food was scarce, and when worries filled their days. But no matter how difficult things became, Amina never stepped back. When her husband felt lost, she became his support. When he grew tired of struggling, she reminded him to stay strong. In the quiet nights, under the wide African sky filled with stars, she would sit beside him, listening to his fears and offering him comfort. Her presence became his peace, even when she herself was carrying her own burdens. There were times when the world seemed against them, when hope felt distant and fragile. But Amina believed that standing together was the only way forward. She did not measure love by easy days. She believed love was proven in the hard ones. Even on the days when she felt weak, she chose strength. Even when she needed support, she became the one giving it. She carried not only her own struggles, but his as well, without ever making him feel alone. The people in the village saw her loyalty, but they did not fully understand its depth. Amina was not just a wife. She was a source of strength, a quiet force that kept everything from falling apart. She never walked away, never gave up, and never stopped believing in the life they were building together. Because to her, Love was not about leaving when things became hard. It was about staying, even when everything else was falling apart. Amina remained loyal, even when life tested her in ways she never expected. In the quiet African village, where relationships were built on trust and respect, she carried her commitment with pride. To her, loyalty was not just a promise, it was a way of life. Days passed, and not every moment was filled with happiness. There were misunderstandings, moments of silence, and times when she felt distant from the man she once felt so close to. But even then, she did not allow her heart to change. She chose patience over anger and understanding over blame. In the stillness of the evening, when the sun dipped below the horizon and the village grew quiet, Amina often sat alone, reflecting on her life. There were moments when her heart felt heavy, when she wondered if her loyalty was truly being valued. But instead of giving up, she held on tighter to her belief in love. The elders in the village often said that true character is revealed in difficult times, and Amina lived by those words. She did not look for comfort elsewhere, nor did she allow temporary emotions to break her long-standing commitment. Her loyalty was silent, but powerful. It showed in the way she respected her husband, in the way she protected their relationship, and in the way she continued to give, even when she received little in return. Like the baobab tree that stands strong through storms, Amina remained steady, unshaken by the winds around her. She believed that true love required strength, and that loyalty was its strongest form. And so, through every challenge, Amina stayed true, holding on to her values, her promises, and the love she believed would one day be understood. Amina cared for her home with a quiet devotion that few truly noticed. In the heart of the African village, her small mud house was more than just shelter. It was a place she filled with warmth, effort, and love every single day. Before the first light touched the red soil, Amina would rise. She swept the ground, prepared food over the fire, and arranged everything with care. The soft smoke rising from her cooking, the neatness of her home, and the peaceful feeling inside it all reflected her presence. To others, it may have seemed ordinary, but to her, it was everything. She believed that a home was built not with walls, but with effort and intention. Every meal she cooked carried love. Every corner she cleaned showed her dedication. She made sure that when her husband returned, he would find peace within those walls, no matter how hard the outside world had been. Even when she was tired, she did not stop. Her hands continued to work, her mind focused on keeping everything in balance. There were no days off, no moments of recognition, but still, she carried on. Sometimes, deep inside, she wished someone would notice her efforts. A simple acknowledgement, a small appreciation, but those moments rarely came. Yet, she did not let that stop her. In her heart, she believed that what she was building had value, that her care, her effort, and her presence mattered, even if no one said it out loud. Amina became the silent foundation of her home, the unseen strength that held everything together. And though her work was often invisible, it was powerful, because it came from a place of true love and unwavering dedication. But one day, everything changed, like a sudden storm over the quiet African land. Without warning, without preparation, the life Amina had built over 12 long years began to fall apart. The words came cold and heavy. He wanted to end the marriage. For a moment, it felt unreal, as if time had paused and the world around her had gone silent. Amina stood there, trying to understand how years of love, sacrifice, and loyalty could be reduced to a single decision. The man she had supported through every hardship was now the one choosing to walk away. Her heart trembled, but her body remained still. In her culture, pain is often carried with dignity, and Amina held on to that strength. She did not scream, she did not beg, she simply stood there, absorbing the weight of what was happening. Memories rushed through her mind like the wind before a storm. Early mornings, late nights, moments of laughter, and countless sacrifices. All of it felt distant now, as if it belonged to another life. The home she had built with so much care suddenly felt unfamiliar. The walls that once held warmth now echoed with silence. Everything she had given, everything she had believed in, seemed to slip through her fingers. Yet, even in that painful moment, Amina did not lose herself. Her heart was breaking, but her dignity remained untouched. This was not just the end of a marriage. It was the end of a chapter she had poured her soul into. And as he walked away, Amina was left standing alone, not just with her pain, but with the quiet beginning of a new, unknown journey. The pain settled deep within Amina's heart, heavy and constant, like the quiet heat of the African sun that never truly fades. It was not a pain that could be seen, but it was one she felt in every breath, every thought, every silent moment of her day. After he left, the world around her continued as usual. The village woke with the sunrise, children played in the dust, and life moved forward. But for Amina, everything had changed. The place she once called home now felt empty, as if something essential had been taken away. At night, when the village grew still and only the sound of the wind could be heard, her thoughts became louder. She would sit alone, staring into the distance, her eyes filled with tears she rarely let fall. Her pain was quiet, hidden behind a calm face that the world saw. She began to question herself. Was her love not enough? Did her sacrifices have no value? These thoughts slowly entered her mind, making her doubt her own worth. It is in moments of heartbreak that even the strongest hearts begin to feel uncertain. But even in that deep sorrow, something within her refused to completely break. Like a tree that bends under a strong storm but does not fall, Amina held on to what strength she had left. In the African tradition, it is believed that pain carries lessons, even when they are hard to understand. And though she did not see it yet, this heartbreak was shaping her into someone stronger. Her heart was wounded, but not destroyed. And deep within her silence, a quiet strength was beginning to grow, one that would slowly guide her out of the darkness and toward a new beginning. Time passed slowly for Amina, as if the world itself had softened its pace to match her healing heart. In the quiet African village, life continued, but inside her, something important was beginning to shift. At first, the days felt heavy. Each morning reminded her of what she had lost. But little by little, she began to notice small things again. The warmth of the sunrise, the sound of birds in the distance, the gentle breeze moving through the trees. Nature seemed to whisper that life still continued, even after pain. Amina started to rise earlier, not out of duty, but out of a desire to reclaim her strength. She returned to her routines, not as someone broken, but as someone rebuilding herself. Slowly, she began to find comfort in her own company. Her tears did not disappear overnight, but they became fewer. The sharp pain in her heart softened into a quiet ache, one that reminded her of her journey rather than defining it. She began to reflect deeply on her life, the love she gave, the sacrifices she made, and the strength she had shown. And for the first time, she started to see herself not as someone who was left behind, but as someone who had carried more than most could ever bear. In African wisdom, it is said that a person discovers their true strength not in comfort, but in hardship. And Amina was beginning to understand this truth. Her spirit, once weighed down by sorrow, was now slowly lifting. She was no longer just the woman who loved deeply. She was becoming the woman who could rise again, even after everything fell apart. Amina began to rise, not suddenly, but slowly, like the sun gently climbing over the African horizon each morning. Her journey was no longer about what she had lost, but about who she was becoming. In the village, people started to notice a change in her. She still carried herself with grace, but now there was something different in her eyes, a quiet confidence, a strength that came from within. She was no longer just surviving, she was healing. Each day, she chose herself a little more. She spent time learning, thinking, and reconnecting with the parts of herself she had once set aside. Her hands, once only used for serving others, now began to serve her own growth. She understood that her value was never dependent on someone else's recognition. The love she gave was real, but so was her worth. And even though someone failed to see it, that did not mean it did not exist. Amina walked through the village with a new sense of purpose. The same paths she once walked in pain now felt lighter, as if she was leaving her past behind with every step. The wind that once felt cold now felt like a gentle reminder that life moves forward. The sun that once witnessed her tears now witnessed her strength. She was no longer waiting for someone to define her happiness. Instead, she was building it herself, strong, steady, and unshaken. In that transformation, Amina discovered something powerful, that even after the deepest heartbreak, a woman can rise again, stronger, wiser, and more powerful than ever before. And this time, she was not rising for anyone else. She was rising for herself. The one who left her began to feel her absence, not just in the silence of the home, but in the emptiness of his own heart. At first, he believed he had made the right choice. He thought moving away would bring him peace, freedom, and a new beginning. But as the days turned into nights, something unexpected happened. The warmth he once took for granted was gone. The meals she prepared, the care she gave, the quiet strength she brought into his life. Everything started to echo in his mind. He began to realize that Amina was not just a wife. She was his support, his strength, his foundation. She was the one who stood by him when times were hard, the one who believed in him when no one else did. But now, that chapter was closed. And while he slowly came to understand her worth, Amina was no longer the same woman who once waited in silence. She had grown. She had healed. She had risen. She no longer waited for recognition, nor did she seek validation from the past. Instead, she carried herself with confidence, knowing that her value was never lost. It was simply unseen by the wrong person. In the African village, the wind still blew, the sun still rose, and life continued. But Amina had stepped into a new chapter of her life, one filled with strength, independence, and self-respect. Her story became a message, a powerful reminder. Sometimes, losing someone is not a loss at all. It is the beginning of finding yourself. And Amina, once broken by love, had now become unstoppable. Amina walked forward with quiet strength, her steps steady and filled with purpose. The same paths that once echoed her pain now carried the rhythm of her healing. The African sun shone warmly above her, as if blessing her journey and marking the beginning of a new chapter. She was no longer the woman who stood in silence, waiting for love to be understood. Now, she was a woman who understood herself. Her confidence was not loud, but it was powerful, rooted deep within her like the ancient trees of the land. Every step she took reminded her of how far she had come. From heartbreak to healing, from sacrifice to self-discovery, her journey had shaped her into someone stronger, wiser, and more aware of her worth. The village around her continued its rhythm, children laughing, elders sharing stories, and life moving forward. But Amina was no longer just part of the background. She stood out, not because of her pain, but because of her strength. She no longer looked back with longing. The past had taught her valuable lessons, and she chose to carry those lessons forward instead of the hurt. Her heart, once heavy with sorrow, now carried peace. Not because everything had been perfect, but because she had chosen to rise despite everything that had gone wrong. Amina understood that true strength is not found in never falling, but in rising every time you do. And now, as she looked ahead toward the open horizon, she knew one powerful truth. Her story was no longer about what she lost, but about how she rose. The one who left her began to feel her absence deeply. At first, it was small, just moments of silence that felt a little too empty, a little too cold. But with time, those moments grew heavier, until they became impossible to ignore. He remembered the way Amina used to care for him, not with loud words, but with quiet actions. The warmth she brought into his life, the patience she showed, the strength she carried without asking for anything in return. These memories began to return one by one. For the first time, he understood what he had truly lost. But by then, Amina had already stepped into a new version of herself. She was no longer waiting, no longer hoping for someone else to see her worth. She had found it within herself. She continued her life with dignity, walking through the village with her head held high. The same woman who once gave everything to someone else was now investing in her own growth, her own peace, and her own future. There was no bitterness in her heart, only wisdom. She had learned that love should never cost a person their identity. And while she once gave her all, she now understood the importance of giving herself the same love and respect. The man who once walked away now realized something important. What he thought was replaceable was actually irreplaceable. But Amina did not look back. Her focus was no longer on the past, but on the future she was creating. In the African sky above her, the sun set once again, painting the world in gold. Just as it had witnessed her pain, it now witnessed her rise. And Amina, strong and unshaken, continued forward. A woman reborn through strength and defined by her own light. Amina stood alone on a quiet hill overlooking the African village as the sun slowly dipped into the horizon. The sky turned into shades of gold, orange, and deep purple, painting a beautiful picture of both endings and new beginnings. The wind gently moved through her traditional dress, as if nature itself was honoring her journey. She looked out over the village, the place that once held her pain, her sacrifice, and her silent struggles. But now, it no longer felt like a place of loss. It felt like a place of growth. Behind her was the past, memories of love, pain, and everything she had endured. In front of her was the open horizon, endless, full of possibilities, and waiting for her to step into it with confidence. Amina closed her eyes for a moment and took a deep breath. She was no longer the woman who gave everything and lost herself in the process. She was no longer waiting for someone to value her. She had already found her worth. The strength she carried now was not borrowed. It was built through years of experience, sacrifice, and healing. She had walked through heartbreak and came out stronger on the other side. A soft smile appeared on her face, not because everything had been perfect, but because she had survived everything that tried to break her. Her story was no longer about pain. It was about power, not about what she lost, but about who she became. As the last light of the sun faded, Amina opened her eyes and took a step forward into her new life.